In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. Now, I don't want to speak for my special guest, but I believe he would agree that the moments in our lives that appear dire can become moments in our lives that inspire. He's a survivor of sexual assault, addiction, and co-disorders. He's endured tremendous traumas, and in his own reflection, he's discovered an unfocused but very critical area of the recovery process that's incredibly important for trauma survivors. He is the founder of Coherently Aware Now Incorporated, a nonprofit committed to the long-term healing of trauma survivors within environments that nurture compassion, love, and self-worth. Let's welcome Eric Harazi to the show. Hi, Eric. Man, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Well, hey, let's just go ahead and dive in it. At first, I want to talk about your journey, okay? And just the different barriers and obstacles and things you had to navigate through in your journey. And then we want to talk about the inspiration behind that journey for the great work that you're doing today, right? So can you share with the listeners, just where are you from and what was life for Eric growing up?
Well, I originally grew up in Jersey,
Mhm.
South Jersey by Philly, and my childhood wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best.
Gotcha.
I grew up in a complete family. My father died when I was 14 years old. He died at 2 years old of cancer.
Mhm.
He was an abusive father, and so our household wasn't that safe.
Mm.
My mother was codependent on that relationship. It wasn't the whole household wasn't a safe place for me,
Mm.
and for my sister and for my mother at the same time.
Mhm.
So my childhood was very hard. Later on, after my father died, I didn't talk to my mother for about 7 years. We got into an argument. So at around 17, we stopped talking. So I was kind of left without any parents.
Mm.
And thank God for my grandparents who stepped in and kind of took that role to guide me as much as they could.
Mm.
So early on in my life, I had trauma.
Mm.
I believe it starts most adults who suffer trauma at a later stage in their life usually also start at a younger age.
Mhm.
And it just keeps going. It keeps building on. That's how I see it.
Mhm.
And so in my 20s, I was very lost, I would say. I couldn't grasp what love was. I couldn't grasp what trust was. I
Mhm.
couldn't grasp what a lot of things were. And it was very hard for me. I was overweight. I was about 350 pounds in my life. As a child, I was heavy.
Mhm.
So I was always made fun of. And then in my late 20s, I had gastric bypass and I lost a lot of weight.
Mm. Okay.
And being a gay man in that community and being overweight is very hard. It's a very hard thing.
Mm.
You're not fully accepted in that. Sexually, you're not fully accepted,
I
and
got you.
and so it's you're always the gay funny friend usually. Um, so you're usually put into that category, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was just very hard. It was just very hard to. It wasn't the community wasn't as open as it is now.
I see.
And so after I lost my weight, um, you can see how the tides changed, and people were looking at me differently.
Right.
And I was just accepted more, which is also, I think, another trauma, because your mind doesn't know how to adjust to that.
Right.
And it can really mess with you. And so in my early 30s, my background is theater, and I was doing summer stock up in Massachusetts, and I was going to meet someone who we were just going to hook up, an older gentleman. And now let me give you a backstory. I never really did drugs. I smoked a little weed in my life.
Right.
In high school, nothing crazy. I maybe got drunk 2 or 3 times in my life, nothing crazy. My father was a drinker, so that was never really my scene.
Right.
And and I went to his house, and he had meth there, and he was like, let's just smoke some. I was like, you know something, I never really do anything crazy. Why not? Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's live a little.
Yeah.
He was into me. It was a whole new world for me now. This was a whole new world for me. And he got me so high that he forced IV meth into me. And then he sexually assaulted me. And then had a friend waiting for me, and then they took me into a basement and kept me there for about 8 hours, and kept me high for that whole time. And I was sexually assaulted throughout that time. So that was my original sexual assault that happened, my first trauma that really happened. But at that time, I didn't realize that was a sexual assault. I thought I was just having a good old time. And because I was high, people were into me, and I just thought I was just having a good old time. I did not realize that was a sexual assault until maybe 5 or 6 years later, when I went to a trauma treatment center. And they had to break that down to me, that everything was premeditated. And just because my voice was saying yes, my mind was still incapacitated, and I was not able to really make my own clear decisions. So that was sexual assault. That was a rape.
Yes.
And so it took me by surprise, actually. It really did take me by surprise.
I would think so. I mean, how do you process something like that? Let's say, you mentioned kept you in the basement for 8 hours. On that 9th hour, when, just the very step-by-step detailing where you hear the walking down the steps on that 9th hour, and you think, oh, it's going to be more of the same. And it's, you can go,
when they said, oh, you can leave now, I was like, oh, okay. And then I had to drive back. I blacked out twice. I blacked out once there, and then once back at the place I was staying at during the summer stock. And I just remember, I remember the last person I was with at that place when I blacked out. He felt bad. He felt really bad, and I couldn't understand why he felt bad, because he knew what was going on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He knew what was happening.
Right.
Me, I did, and he knew I didn't understand what was happening. And I remember him kind of like more caring than everyone else. And he said, and he was like, we can stop if you want. And I remember him saying that. I remember him saying, we can stop if you want.
Right.
And but I was still in my own mind of, no, we're having fun. We're having fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's just keep going. And when they told me that I can leave, I was like, oh, okay, we're done. That's it.
Oh, okay.
But
So,
when I went to the treatment center and they told me what really happened or what was going on, and I said, the first thought that came to my mind was, oh, they didn't really like me. Like, that's where my mind went, was that I wasn't being like, no one liked me.
I see.
Which just showed where my self-esteem was.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, let me ask you this, Eric. Did they know where you came from? In other words, were these, or was this gentleman, did he know you as your quote former self? Where you you were heavy?
No, these were just random people.
Okay, all right. So they had no idea of knowing that you've had this journey in getting, the surgery and losing the weight, and now starting to get looked at. And in your mind, it's opening up a whole new world, like you mentioned.
Correct.
So the fact that you haven't had this type of attention can really, I can see why it was a number of years when you were in the program, and it was revealed to you that it was sexual assault.
Correct. And I'm sure I'm the first or the last person he did
not
this.
at all. Right.
Like, I'm 100% positive that I'm not the first person that he did this to.
Oh, that he did this. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That he did this to.
Okay.
That he boosted their ego up.
Right.
To do this to, or knew that they never used drugs before and did this to. Because once you get an IV drug into you, it really becomes part of you. It doesn't really leave you. It's a whole nother beast. It's like it's like bloodlust. It's this whole nother thing. And I became an addict right away.
That was my next question. Yeah. Was that a springboard to addiction? Especially getting a strong hit like that for the very first time ever. And then, after that phase goes
right away. I could not wait for my next hit. I got a job right after that in Nashville. And I drove down to Nashville. On my way to Nashville, I won the lottery.
Nice.
I won $40,000 on a scratch off.
Wow.
Yes, I won $40,000.
I'm jealous.
$40,000 on a scratch off. So now I'm this brand new addict with
40 grand. Oh my God.
40 grand in his pocket. And the first thing I did was I moved into cast housing for the theater that I worked at.
Right.
And I had a few days off before the actors got there and everything. And what I do right away, I looked for drugs because I was now a newborn addict. And
it has a hold on you.
It had a hold, and then that was an 11, 12-year addiction.
Wow.
On and off for 11, 12 years. I could not get rid of it.
My goodness. Yeah, that's a long time to be addicted. And my goodness, usually you hear the stories, right? People either wind up in jail or dead or overdosed. And you're still here. And That's absolutely tremendous. Now, Eric, I want to see if we can talk about what was that defining moment where you realized or someone told you, or it was just divine intervention or something that made you realize you can't live like this.
I overdosed.
Okay, okay,
I overdosed, and I mean, there wasn't one moment. It was
okay, okay.
buildup of many different moments
I see.
that had to lead me to that place.
Okay,
And because everyone's like, oh, what was your bottom? What was your bottom? And
right.
it wasn't it. I, I've been I've had so many low moments. I've
Hmm.
had so many good moments, but I had to have a mixture of all those moments
Hmm.
to take me to where I am now, if that
That
makes.
makes, yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense. It really does, Eric. And thank you for your transparency in sharing that with us. You know, and I've shared this with someone else recently, but it years past, I used to ask people, if you're, I don't know, if you're 45 and you went back in time to see your 25-year-old self, what would you tell your 25-year-old self? Or if there's anything you could change or take away from your past, what would it be? And over time, I realized, I should just stop asking that question. And the reason why is because it's a combination of the good and the bad things, right? The amazing discoveries, the amazing epiphanies, and of course the tragedies, the setbacks that makes us who we are today. So it was your setbacks, your obstacles and barriers in your journey, in navigating through addiction, as well as the triumphs. I mean, winning the lottery, and being part of a cast, the yin and the yang, if you will, the good and the bad, and if I may, in the industry of theater, right? The
Mhm.
smiley face and the sad face, and
Of course.
it's a combination of those things. So I really appreciate how you verbally illustrated that.
If this world only had tragedy,
Mhm.
we would never know what the good stuff was. You know,
Right,
we have
right.
to, so there has to be that balance. There has
Yes.
to be that balance. We have to know, we have to realize what the, we have to realize what the good, we have to recognize what the good stuff is to know what the bad stuff is also.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But,
I mean,
but
yeah, go ahead.
I also want to make this clear that during my journey, it was also the mixture of therapy that helped me.
Hmm.
Um, Even when I was using, I was still going to therapy.
Hmm.
I was still, I mean, but I had that luxury. Not a lot of people don't have that luxury. I had that.
I see.
I had. It was accessible to me, and I was going to therapy, and when I went to treatment centers, I had very good therapy. It just, so it was a mixture of everything that just worked for me, and
Gotcha.
this was for me. It might not be for someone else. This was what worked for me.
I understand. I understand. So, man, you've had a tumultuous and traumatic journey with sexual assault, addiction, and more. Now you're a survivor, but we always understand with survivors of these sorts of traumas, um, it's not a destination, right? It's something you constantly work on, um, day in and day out. And so you've had a time to reflect on your own path, I'm sure, and I'd love to hear about the inspiration, of you being the founder and starting up the nonprofit Coherently Aware Now, and so uh, in reflecting on your path, Eric, what important element, excuse me, what important element did you feel was missing from your recovery?
I think an important, well, a few things. There are a few things we're missing. I think advocacy for clients in treatment centers was a huge thing missing, and I think definitely funding for people to get into treatment, the
Mhm.
accessibility for therapy is much needed. Needs to be more visible for people, and more uh, um, just more health. The healthcare system in this country is not for people who need it.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's not pro health. Let's just say that,
Okay, okay.
which 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 blows my mind. It's not pro healing. It's pro money for themselves. Um,
Gotcha.
so that, I've had insurance, I haven't had insurance, I've been able to get into treatment centers, I've not been able to get in treatment centers. I am I'm a vocal person myself.
Mhm.
So advocating for myself isn't that hard for me. There are people who it's not that easy for.
Right.
uh, and so they usually do not um, thrive as much in treatment centers, and they don't normally always leave there the best that they should from a treatment center, or they don't normally get what they need to get at a treatment center. Um, so I think that is lacking, and so
Mhm.
that was something that's why when I made this nonprofit, I wanted to make that a very big thing for us. And so those are two major things that were missing in treatment centers, and regulating treatment centers are also a thing that's missing.
Mhm.
Treatment centers can get accredited, but they're not truly regulated, and so we want to make sure that they are regulated and 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 safe for clients.
So how would one go about making sure a treatment center is regulated outside of the current model that I guess doesn't doesn't assess or regulate any existing treatment centers? Is there a regulation model that you have to build or partner with other nonprofit groups to hold these treatment centers accountable?
Well, we would make our own. We're making our own
Gotcha.
regulation, like
Okay.
what from our um, what from our own experiences of what needs to be done in treatment centers. So we will be making our own, and we'll be going there every week. Well, hopefully every week or every 2 weeks
Gotcha.
to make sure that clients are feel safe, are
Yes.
getting the correct therapy that they need,
Yes.
that that the food is okay, that the sleeping arrangements are okay,
Hmm.
that um, for LGBTQIA, that their pronouns are being addressed correctly.
Right.
These are little things that people don't think about, that but need to be taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
these are things that make people feel okay and feel safe.
That's right.
And some people, some clients, like I said, just don't feel comfortable enough to advocate for themselves. So we just want to make sure we want to advocate with them, not for them, with them.
Right.
Because
Right.
at some point, uh, people are gonna need to learn how to use their voices, and we want them to know that they have a voice to use.
Yes. And Eric, it sounds like your organization creates a springboard to manifest that empowerment for these individuals. So over time, I'm sure they will be empowered to have their own voice when it comes to, expressing something they feel is wrong or not right. You know, Man, this is absolutely, excuse me, tremendous, absolutely amazing, because there's a level of trust that your organization establishes with these people that goes beyond just the trust for a quote safe space to handle or treat you for addiction or to treat you for trauma, but it's also the small, I mean, not small things, I take that back, not the small things, but it's the details that that like you said, a lot of people don't pay attention to.
Yeah.
I mean, the pronouns, and I mean, is very important. Just making sure that the environment is a space of diversity, right, and inclusion, and so everyone is equally respected, on an even plane throughout this environment, and that trust that you establish, I think reinforces that safe space in your organization.
And I think the good thing is, or the relatable thing is that I'm not a person who is just r- doing an organization just to do an organization. Doing organizations because I've been there. I, I
Yes, yes.
I've been in 8 treatment centers,
Mhm.
and I know what goes on there. I know what has worked and what doesn't work. I've been attacked by staff members. I've I've
Mhm.
I've not been felt I haven't felt safe in treatment centers.
Mhm.
I've felt very safe in treatment centers. So I know I'm a person who is someone who would use this nonprofit, who if I need to reach out, I would call this nonprofit.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You have to ask yourself, if 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 I were needing help or treatment or assistance, would I visit my place?
Yes, and
Um,
that's how I designed it. I designed it of
mhm.
everything. And as I designed this, I kept asking my questions. Well, what would I want?
Right.
What would I
Right.
want? What did I need? What
Mhm.
what if I had this? What did I need when I was in treatment?
Yeah.
I need someone to care about me. That's what I needed.
Right.
Not
Right.
that I didn't have people caring about me. I had my family. But beyond my family, beyond the therapist,
Mhm.
beyond the people who worked at these treatment centers,
Yeah.
I needed to know that that there are people who when I was in a treatment center and I could not, that one treatment center where I was attacked in, and I could not get heads or tails out of anyone, and I
Mhm.
had nowhere to turn to. My family couldn't help me.
Mhm.
Treatment center was a shit show. Um,
Mhm.
who I had no one to turn to. I had no one who can help me, and
Horrible.
I looked like the crazy person. And
Right.
so I was like, if I had someone who was credible enough, or if I had a place that was credible enough to back me up, that's what I would love.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah. That's very important for someone who feels like they're lost
Yeah,
and feels as if they don't have anyone in their corner.
yeah,
And that's very ironic, because when you go to a treatment center, you that's their job, to be in your corner, and to have your back. But to go there and not get that, it's like, well,
and it's
hell,
not.
I'm already here.
But it's
Where
not.
can I go?
You know what kills me? It's not that they're not, like, a lot of some of the staff members are, but they just can't do anything about it because of the.
Politics?
Yes, 100%,
Okay.
a hundred
Okay.
percent. And they
Yeah.
can't do anything about it, or they won't do anything about it because they don't want to lose their job. 2, they can't say anything. 3, like they just, the administration is shit. And it's,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm sorry, can I curse? Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. No, you're
and
perfectly fine.
and so they want to have your back, but
Mhm.
they can't. And
Gotcha.
and so they're kind of stuck. And
Yeah.
um and which is still horrible, because do you care more about someone's mental health, or do you care more about your resume?
Right. Think about the integrity of the company that you work for.
That you're holding back.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you're holding, like, do you really want to work there if you have to hold back?
Right.
Like, how great is this place that you're working for?
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the first thoughts I would have, quite honestly. Wow. Yeah. I mean, very poignant questions that I think you should ask yourself. And these people, you know, I mean, I understand you have mouths to feed, but there's your personal integrity, right? And there's the integrity of the company. And if they are not aligned and the company is compromising more or not fixing something that is very apparent that needs to be addressed, then it makes me wonder if the outside world kind of reassesses what they perceive or how they perceive me because I'm associated with this company.
Yeah.
You know, I can't help but think that, you know, and so speaking of the difference in these treatment centers and companies, Eric, I have just a couple last questions to ask you.
Sure.
I want to talk about how treatment centers address trauma, okay,
Mhm.
and how Coherently Aware Now addresses trauma. Now, there's you know, I can't, I don't need to tell you. So many different types of trauma: physical abuse, abduction, war, near-death experiences, a lot more, right? So,
Yes.
in the healing process for these survivors of these types of traumas, and in the healing process and treatment, is it a matter of quote different methods for different methods work for different people,
You
or
know,
is it more of a community effort, you know, in the organization, creating that quote safe circle, that safe space, or is it a combination of both in addressing the trauma?
when I the first I went to a really great trauma treatment in Ocala, Florida,
Hmm.
and one of the first things that we're told, well, that they would do this family week, and in the beginning of family week, they would start off with saying, just so your family can understand, is trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma,
Okay.
which means no matter what trauma, it's trauma.
Gotcha.
And so, I mean, listen, I'm not a therapist. I'm just someone
Mhm.
who's experienced stuff.
Right,
And,
right, right.
and so for my trauma, my healing might be different from someone else.
Gotcha.
Now, I've been to trauma with people who were in war, people who had domestic abuse, people who were self-harmers, people
Yeah.
with DID. So I've been in with all types of people with different trauma.
Hmm.
Um, so, but mine was my therapy was designed for me. You know,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
might have had some of the same assignments
Hmm.
that we had to do, but mine might have looked different when I did mine,
Gotcha.
uh,
Gotcha.
compared to someone else.
Okay.
Um, now our individual therapy could look totally different than our group therapy,
Yes. Yes.
and I wouldn't know what's going on in their individual therapy.
Okay. So it sounds like a combination
Yeah, I mean,
in
so
the
we
overall process.
yeah, so and then the reason why I named our website www.thesafecircle.org
Hmm.
was, it took me a while to come up with that name,
Hmm.
because and I'm thinking of all the times that I was in different treatment centers, and we would sit there in our group sessions, and we would sit in our circle and share either our stories or our assignments or whatever we would do in our groups, in our group early group meetings or whatever.
Right.
And they would say, they would always start off with, remember, whatever we say in our circle here stays in our circle, it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I came up with the safecircle.org.
Love it. Love it.
So yeah, so I mean, I think trauma therapy can look the same for many different types of trauma, but can also look totally different. I know that sounds like I'm avoiding the question, but it's so true though.
No, I don't feel like you're avoiding the question at all. I don't feel that answer sounds as if it's avoiding the question. To me, it's spot on, and the way you described it kind of turned that light bulb on inside of my head. It can look the same for everyone, but it can also be different. And trauma is just that, right? Like you said, trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma, whether it's war, whether it's childhood abuse, physical abuse, abduction, it's all trauma. And so, since we're all different as people, the common denominator is trauma. It can look the same for multiple people, but it can be totally different as well. And then you so eloquently talked about the individual therapy and treatment as well as the group therapy, and that turned on that light bulb as well, Eric. So I really appreciate you
And
sharing that.
and also my healing could also take a lot quicker than someone else. Like, I know someone who was in a treatment center for about 14 months, where I was only in there for about 60 days. Healing is so personal to each individual.
Yes.
It's such a personal thing that I there's no exact formula to it.
Right. Yeah, that's what makes it personal, right? It's
Yeah,
not a cookie cutter, it's not a template.
yeah, there's no exact formula to it.
Yeah.
There might be certain things that therapists do to help guide it, but there's no exact formula to it.
Understood. So I want to ask you about the name, Coherently Aware Now. So what kind of resonated with me when I heard the name of your nonprofit? Those two words right there, coherently aware. And the reason why it it kind of perked my ears up is because on the Road to Rediscovery podcast, we have something called the 4 cornerstones to personal growth. And one of those cornerstones is self-awareness. And, there's past episodes and workshops and stuff that really unpacks what self-awareness is, what it looks like. How do you know when you have it? How do you know when you don't? How can you get it? All this good stuff, right? So, so we talk about self-awareness a lot. Now, can you explain to the listeners, with your company, with your organization, the essence and the meaning of being coherently aware?
The essence and being coherently aware. For a long time, and I'm going to talk about with my essence. For a long time, because I believe that my essence was put into this nonprofit. I would I wouldn't have a home for my essence. My essence would float around me, and I was just such an empty shell. And I would have to like reach up every time I needed to use it, and I would throw it back into the air when I was done with it. And once I started healing, and once I started to really come into myself and get to my best self, my higher self,
Right.
and my essence would start finding its home in my body, and that's how I knew I was really, really healing is when I didn't have to start reaching for my essence anymore.
Gotcha.
And that's what I think that being coherently aware is when you don't have to reach for your essence anymore, and your essence is now finding your home in your body, and you're completing that best self of who you are.
I see. Well said. Excuse me. Well said, Eric. That makes a lot of sense. Your essence is home. You don't have to reach for it. And that's when you are becoming coherently aware. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Eric. So can you share with the listeners, how can the listeners connect with you and learn more about Coherently Aware Now, and how can they follow you on social media and those sorts of things?
So they can go to www.thesafecircle.org.
Okay.
That's our website. They can go donate on that page also, and read up on our website.
Great.
My stories on there also. We have a Facebook page at Coherently Aware Now. We also have our Instagram page, coherently_aware_now. And then you can go to my TikTok page, Go Unstuck Yourself, and follow me there.
Go Unstuck Yourself TikTok page.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
We're going to make I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to let you know that we're not a fully functioning nonprofit yet, because we just launched in the beginning of the summer. So we're still in the raising, we'll always be in the raising money phase, but we're still trying to figure out and building who we are as a nonprofit, and building our capital to become a fully functioning nonprofit.
Okay, no, that makes sense. They're still launching in some aspects, and thank you for sharing that as well, Eric. We're going to make sure that we have direct links to your social mediums to follow you, to connect with you, as well as the website to learn more about your nonprofit and your story. On the episode show notes for the listeners to directly click and connect with you as they're listening to this awesome conversation. Eric Harazi, man, I really appreciate your time out of your busy schedule to come here and chat with us, Eric.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. This was lovely to be on. I enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, likewise. And I enjoyed talking with you as well, my friend. And so down the line, if you don't mind, I'd love to stay in touch, and maybe 6 to 8 months down the road, once, your nonprofit gets some traction, then I'd love to have you back on the show to catch the listeners up on how the nonprofit's going.
Definitely. Maybe Paris Hilton will pick me up or something like that.
Oh yeah, maybe. That'd be awesome. Oh, great. Eric, man, thanks again. And now we're going to go into a segment I call 3 for the Road. And in 3 for the Road, that's where I ask my guests 3 random yet thought-provoking questions that I encourage them to answer in 5 words or less per question. So what do you think, Eric? You think you're up for it?
I'm nervous, but okay.
Oh, man, no need to be nervous. And here's the reason why. Because I do not ask cookie cutter template questions for every guest.
Okay.
I don't ask the same questions to every guest. My questions are customized based on my guest's background, profession, knowledge, and their journey. Okay. So here we are. Question number 1, starting us off for 3 for the Road. And I have to say, I'm going to give you a precursor. These questions are, the theme of these questions are circles, the shape of circles.
Okay.
I know it may sound silly, but I mean, it's trying to be in lockstep with your safe circle. Okay. All right. So question number 1. What can naturally round objects that we see in everyday life, such as the moon, a tennis ball, or a bicycle wheel, tell us about ourselves?
Wait, repeat that again?
Sure. What can naturally round objects that we see in our everyday walk of life, right? Like the moon or a tennis ball or a bicycle wheel. What can these naturally round objects, when we look at them and really, really think about their shape, what can they tell us about ourselves?
Um, wow. Oh my God. Um, that wow. Oh my God. I'm always bad at these things. I am so bad at these things. Um, that
You're doing fine, man.
that you don't know where the start or the end of the line is,
Okay.
where it starts or where it finishes.
I got you. I got you. I know what you're talking about now, Eric. You don't know where the start is or the finish, where the finish is either. And that's kind of in line with what I was thinking as far as what the shape tells me.
Yeah.
The shape tells me our journeys can be endless,
Yeah.
right? Because you see, you have a wheel on a vehicle and the wheel turns. Well, it can keep turning and keep going as long as you want on the journey. So that shape can tell us the journey of our lives can be endless. But it's the same as what you're saying. No end, no begin, because it's just continuous. All right, man. Great job on that first question, Eric.
Thanks.
So question number 2. Does a person's perspective of the safe circle change in your organization from the day they start to the day they leave?
Well, no. Does their perspective change on the safe circle? I would hope not.
Yes.
I I
Okay.
mean,
Now, you can elaborate on it too. You don't have to, the 5
I mean,
words. If you have something to
I would
elaborate
I
on.
would I would hope not. I would hope they would leave there with well, I don't know. We haven't had it there yet.
Well, that's good. I think that's actually good. And this is the part that I was unsure of, right? Because I think this question, you can look at it 2 ways, right? The first way is, like you're saying, no, I would hope it wouldn't change because we're working so hard to make this a safe circle, you know? And then the second part, which I kind of gravitated to when I was writing this question down earlier, is, you know, how safe and secure does this person feel so early in the process in your treatment center? They're having an open mind. They're gonna work the process, work the system, and they're a little apprehensive, but they're told this is a safe circle. So their initial perspective as they begin the process may not be as they're engaged, but not as comfortable because they're still trying to feel their way through. Whereas when they leave the process,
You're
uh,
you're 100% on that. You're 100% because
okay,
when I went to treatment,
mhm,
I was so untrusting of people, and by the time I left, my whole demeanor of those people who helped me changed. So
gotcha,
so yes, you're 100% on that. So yeah,
gotcha.
I think their outlook on what the safe circle is would change. You're 100%. Yeah.
Oh no, that's fantastic. I mean, plus me, I'm a hopeless optimist. I always like hope for the best. But and thank you for sharing your experience of your level of trust going in versus how it really elevated going out. So, all right, Eric, topping us off for question number 3 for 3 for the road. It's kind of a fun question. I like this one. Name a circle-shaped food that would be good to eat within a circle of friends.
Oh, pizza. No doubt about it.
Pizza. There we go.
That was the easy. I'm a pizza fan. That's just
Yeah.
That's right away. No doubt.
Hey, pizza's my go-to, Eric. It is, and some people say I'm a pizza snob. No, I just know what I like.
Listen, I grew up in Jersey.
Yeah.
And now we live in Florida, so it's hard to get that good pizza. So
yeah, no, I bet. Yeah, I lived in Cincinnati for many years growing up, and there were certain pizza places I loved there. 6 years ago, moved down here to North Texas, and yeah, while they have great Mexican food and they have great barbecue, you can't find a good pizza joint hardly anywhere.
Yeah, no, that was the easiest question out of all.
Oh, that's great. No, and one last thing I just want to say about this, which I'm sure you've already observed, being a pizza fan such as myself. Isn't it interesting how a circular shaped meal gets into a square box and the slices are cut in triangles? A lot of geometry going on there,
But I also like a good Sicilian, so don't get me wrong.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, then that takes the triangles out of the equation, I'm sure.
I also like a good Sicilian.
Oh, I can dig it. Eric, man, thanks again for coming on the show, man. It's been so great chatting with you. I've really enjoyed our conversation, man.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And as a quick reminder, the Rediscover Roadmap digital course is now available. This course allows you and shows you how to take an introspective approach to your personal development and accountability using the 4 cornerstones of personal growth. That's self-awareness, humility, gratitude, and service to others. For a free preview and to register, visit roadtorediscovery.com/course. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery.com/course. And most importantly, everyone, if you have a loved one or a coworker or a friend who seems to be at the end of their rope, they seem lost, going through dark days of despair, and just seem as if they have nowhere to turn, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them, because on the road to rediscovery, there are 2 things we want our listeners to know. Number 1, there's always hope. And number 2, you're not alone. You're never alone. The road to rediscovery, it's part of a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.
The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.